Hey, what's up, everybody? BDF44 coming at you with another video. All right, so this was a very interesting game that the Lakers played against the Rockets. I gotta apologize to you guys. I was assuming that the game was in Houston in my last video. Kind of went on a whole thing about how they were gonna be in their own gym. It was a back-to-back in LA. I've never seen that before. That's why I just assumed the other game was gonna be in Houston because I've never, literally never seen two teams play back-to-back in the regular season on the same floor. That I've never seen. So yeah, that was an interesting new thing for the schedule. But all in all, the Lakers played a very interesting game. It was interesting. I can't. That was the best way I know how to describe it. First things first, you want to give credit to LeBron James for really taking it to the Houston Rockets in the fourth quarter, um, driving to the basket and consistently scoring when we needed a scoring punch. He really gave us a big boost. I like what I saw to all three of our superstars. Obviously, they all came to play tonight. If you look at the box score, you can clearly see guys who were Hall of Famers were definitely awake for this game. Carmelo Anthony only missed 3 shots tonight. I think he had like three threes. Continued his stellar shooting in purple and gold. Russell Westbrook looked comfortable out there. Had a good game tonight, even though he did some things down the stretch that really put our game in jeopardy. Trying to dunk a ball, it was a situation where you try to get a tip in dunk, um, and it's just clock management. It's really about clock management. When you don't connect on that dunk with the clock being as it was, I think it was like 19 seconds left, meaning the shot clock was erased. That missed dunk ended up going out of bounds and sent the ball into the possession of the Houston Rockets. It's kind of one of those things where if he pulls down the board instead of tries to attempt that dunk and just kicks it back out, they're forced to foul. We're up by like what, 4 at that moment? Game over. What ended up happening was Jalen Green, young fella that I've been talking about, he's been in a shooting slump lately, a pretty bad one too. Well, he decided to slap out of that slump. And just like I predicted, the very thing I predicted was that the Houston Rockets, they ended that game against the Lakers on a high note. They were able to dunk the ball, get some lobs up at the end of the fourth quarter to make them feel really good about what they could do in our building. And I was certain that they were going to come back in their own building, right? Because that's what I thought it was, and have that energy. Well, since the game was in our building, that still set the same idea still stood just the same because they had felt good about shooting in our building. So that made it even worse. Um, KJ Martin is playing stellar basketball against the Lakers. I don't know what it is about putting on a show against this particular team, but he ain't played as well all year long. But he's turning into his dad up against us, so that was frustrating. But I think KPJ had a fantastic game on the defensive end. Once again, he stood out for me defensively in the last game, bodying up LeBron James, and in this game, he had 4 steals. So he did some good things facilitating as well. I really like what I saw from him, even though he ended up missing the game-winning shot, and he's had some troubles with turnovers and things of that nature. But all in all, I've been impressed with him, particularly on the defensive end. I just didn't know he had that in his arsenals. Um, so yeah, that young team is getting it together. Alperen Sengun is playing not his greatest in this particular game. He had a funny sequence that Shaq is going to eat up on Shaq and the Fool when he kind of threw the ball no look over his head to a player he thought was under the basket, ready for to receive, but there was a miscommunication. The ball went flying out of bounds, and it was very funny to see. So that was one of the main highlights. That was a blooper there for them. Um, Very interesting point about this game. Both teams shot exactly the same percentage from the field. If I'm not mistaken, it was 52.7, both teams. So that was very interesting. I think the difference, honestly, even though the Lakers shot significantly worse from the 3 point line than the Rockets, because we were in the 20s, they were in the 30s. I think the difference, honestly, was at the free throw line for the Rockets. They shot in the 40 percentile from the free throw line, and that ultimately is what the major difference was on the scorecard. Because the Houston Rockets were shooting so much better than us, just in general. They were matching our interior presence, but they were also being able to shoot the three. As I said, Jalen Green just snapped completely out of his shooting slump, and that was the story. Carmelo Anthony was really the only guy on our team who could hit the three tonight. We were just continuing to clank it. We've been struggling from behind the arc for a couple games now, and that those struggles continued mightily tonight. I was discouraged by the fact that all three of our superstars played well. Our bench played excellent, and we still had a very, very, very close game to a bad team. Now, I know you guys know I don't think the Rockets are a bad team. I actually think the Rockets have a potential to be a very good team, if not a great team. I said that I think they're one of the best young teams ever assembled, and I stand by that to this very second because of the magnitude of the depth that they have from player to player to player. That happens to all be the same age. It happens to be all starting their careers at the same time. So for me, they run about 8 deep, full of young prospects that all have all-star potential or better. And I just feel like we saw several of them show out tonight. Tate has been in a slump. He snapped out of that slump. Green has been in a slump. He snapped out of that slump. Porter's been in a slump. He's snapping out of that slump. So you're seeing a lot of that going on with that Houston Rockets team. I think the worst is probably behind them in terms of them struggling as they have. Green snapped out of that slump tonight. I can assure you. Like he's all those problems he was having all week long, he found his confidence in Staples. So what he's going to do now from going forward, I guarantee you, will be better than what it was. I guarantee it. Because he had some clutch shots tonight. You know, hit from behind the arc in the fourth quarter. They were going to him, and his mechanics were shining. And you know, I think Stu, our great Laker announcer Stu Lance, mentioned something. He said that, you know, Jalen Green can he's learning what he can do, and he can kind of get to anywhere in the floor wherever he wants to at any time. He just hasn't discovered what he can do, and that's essentially what I believe. His athleticism may be even beyond what he's able to um, really control at this point, because he was a little out of control tonight in certain instances, driving, having his head down, kind of just you know being one dimensional in terms of trying to score the basketball, and he drew some charges and some things that I think he would love to take back, but ultimately, again, shooting the ball, he was money. So I think what I'm encouraged by is in seeing Jalen Green over the last several games, his stats, even though the shooting slumps have been there, he's been trying to get a few boards here and there. He's been trying to get some assists. He's been trying to do other things. So that's always encouraging, especially for scorers. You want to see them try their very best to be effective in other areas, particularly early on in their development. So, yeah, everything from Jalen Green I've seen has been good enough to make me feel comfortable about him being the second pick in the draft, to be honest with you. I know there's a lot of guys getting off to hot starts, but Houston Rockets have somebody that fits on their team, that's going to lead their team. And I think that kid is, with KPJ, is going to be probably the premier backcourt in the league someday. I think it probably will be them. They're going to be in some competition with some other guys, but I think they're going to be in position to have the deepest team if they can keep this core together. So, yeah, I have super, super high expectations for the Houston Rockets over probably another 6-year span. It ain't nothing recent, but it'll take some time. They'll get it done. In the meantime, the Lakers, back to the Lakers. All the talk about our three-point shooting, yeah, that's a problem. Our turnovers, we're starting to get it together. I like what I saw. We're getting there. Defensively, nah, man, we bad. It's not even. It's one of those situations where I say it's not that I'm not seeing the effort. For the most part, I'm seeing the effort. There was a play or two where I felt we could have closed out on shooters. I think LeBron left Christian Wood open for a clutch three. That was a huge, huge mistake. We were up by 9 at that time, and they ended up having a chance to win it. I thought that was where the game turned. We can get on Russell Westbrook for that play where he otherwise should have pulled down the board, but we also have to look at Braun in that particular play before that and say, yo, man, we really need you to try to at least rush at that man, close out on that man or something. And another thing that kind of I really thought about is like looking at the play down the stretch. You know, it's basketball philosophy time for me. When you have a foul to give, you're up by 2, you have a foul to give, most of the time it makes sense to take that foul. But tonight, there was a situation where, you know, we had fouled the player that they had, you know, with the ball in his hands in that situation. And because we had he ended up attempting a shot, but because we had a foul to give before he was able to attempt that shot, basically they called a foul. So that means the ball goes out of bounds. Now, in my mind, I would rather him go to the line. Christian Wood, we're up by 2. A 3-point shot wins the game. It's like maybe 3 or 4 seconds left. Instead of him going to the line to shoot the 2 free throws, which I think is a better percentage for me, even though if he misses one and then they pull down the board, it gives him a chance to win again. I would rather him go for the 2 free throws, makes both of those free throws, and give me an opportunity to get that board, controlling myself. It gives me more control over my destiny rather than putting the ball back in their hands to run another play for another clutch shots when a kid just hit a clutch shot in that same fashion in the previous play. I just felt like giving them another look at it in this particular case. I would rather not foul there, or I would rather foul preventing the layup and sending him to the line as it looked like we were going to do. So that was one of those situations where basketball philosophy wise, this is the first time I ever felt that way, where this one scenario, having an extra foul just didn't really make me feel better about the play. All it felt like is we were giving the coach another chance to run a play that it otherwise failed in that situation because they should have been going to the line. So I don't know. It is what it is. It was another situation I thought was bizarre. The referees had done something where they had mistaken the team fouls, I guess, or something like that. So as to where they were supposed to be not in the penalty, we had placed them in the penalty, and thus Kent Bazemore ended up taking 2 free throws and making those 2 free throws that otherwise should not have been taken. So they spent about 5 minutes deliberating about this thing without telling anybody what was going on in terms of the analysis. And then in the conclusion, they came back and said, we're going to take 2 points off the board. I've been watching basketball my whole life. I've never seen anything like that. If referees make a mistake like that, it certainly should not be rectified in the score. And, I don't know if that, if everybody agrees with me, because you certainly want to be able to get it right. But I think once the basket goes through the hoop, guys credited with his free throws, and then the error is on the refs, and plays have been played since. It's like, no, now you're trying to say what happened didn't happen because of a mistake you made. That's not how you handle that. So I would imagine the NBA is going to feel the same way, and those officials are probably going to have to answer for that, because you're making the game pay for your mistake versus getting it right. I don't know. You tell me. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Kind of on the fence about it. But either way, that was bizarre. So yeah, man. Anthony Davis was phenomenal down the stretch. He had a really, really fantastic block on Jalen Green before Jalen hit a 3 that ultimately knocked it down to a 1-point deficit. AD had a block that was just phenomenal, man. His length is unparalleled. And if he's on your team, you're instantly a great defensive team. Or at least have the potential to be, since we're not. He's definitely covering up a lot of our mistakes. DJ played some good minutes tonight for us, man. Dwight was out. I think probably rest, but more than likely some type of spasm or something like that. But it was a situation where we were a little shorthanded, and I thought DJ played some fantastic minutes for us. His conditioning is coming around, so I was very encouraged by that. What else, man? Malik Monk didn't score tonight. He hasn't scored in a couple games. I do believe that leg injury, ankle, whatever it is affecting him pretty much. I do believe that, because he's a natural born shooter. You know what I mean? So if his mechanics are off, sort of like Dame, I say it's probably something that has to do with him physically. I don't think he's losing confidence. And guys who shoot well, shooting slumps usually have something to do with physical stuff. But I don't know. You tell me. But all in all, I'm looking forward to him snapping out of that shooting slump. Let's see, HBK. I didn't see really a whole lot of him tonight in terms of him standing out. I didn't see much from him in the second half. I think the majority of the game was kind of one of those situations where once the fourth quarter hit, LeBron James pretty much took over. He just continued he scored about, I say, 6 or 8 straight points where he was just basically driving at the basket and using his size to kind of just overpower Jashawn Tate and whoever else was in front of him. We ran some good 2-man game with him and DeAndre Jordan, which I thought worked well, where they ran like real close screens and kind of rolled off one another. DeAndre kind of shielded LeBron James as LeBron went into the paint. I just felt like that type of stuff is what I'd be talking about. It's like, yeah, it's cool to have 5 shooters on the floor and everybody's tiny so you can run really fast. But plays like that negates all of that, because what ends up happening is you're so big to the only defense your team has against something like that is to foul, thus pulling those shooters off the floor. So I feel like when you go big against those little teams, especially young teams, you can frustrate them. And I thought we were finding a lot of success going big early in the fourth quarter with LeBron and DJ on the floor together. Um, but I think ultimately we took our foot off the gas, and like I said, defensively we can't stop anybody. So we could talk about our offense and how Brody looks better and how all these guys are, shooting poorly in 3 point line, all these different facts. But at the end of the day, we suck so bad defensively that we couldn't close out this game. And it's the same problem we had against OKC. It's the same problem for various reasons, you know what I mean? But it just comes down to our defense just not being available to get the stops. And you'll see sequences from the Lakers that show you we can get stops, particularly when Avery Bradley's on the floor. And when, Anthony Davis is, like I said, getting his length out there, doing things like that, we find our way. Kent Bazemore had some fantastic defensive sequences. He's definitely not a part of the problem. So we have moments, but as a team, a collective, we suck defensively, man. Like, as a team, it's bad. And it's not, it doesn't seem to be getting better. So I knew that already going into the season because I know we don't have the personnel on the perimeter to really do a lot. And I'm not upset about the effort. So I just want to see us continue to work our principles and try to get a little creative about how we're going to approach the defensive end. Accepting being a bad defensive team is not something that we can do because we have championship aspirations and we understand the defense wins championships. So if we're not going to get better on the defensive end, we can kiss that dream goodbye. Period. Now, I think there's more to say in regards to this game. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody who had a very significant impact. Yes, I am. Christian Wood. I've talked about Christian Wood at length, and he never ceases to impress. Tonight, where he did his biggest damage was on the boards at 16 rebounds. I think he had I don't remember exactly what his point total was, but he did hit that major three that gave him a little lucky bounce. LeBron did not guard him, cut it to 6. He did a lot of things down there that helped himself. He used his size, back to the basket, jump hooks, things like that. He was just putting himself in a position to get his little, his two-hand jam that I always tell you he gives. He's just a very consistent player on both sides of the floor who uses his length, similar to Anthony Davis, and is continuing to stretch his game out to the 3-point line. If teams want to leave him alone out there, he will knock him down. Now, that's not to say the same for Alperen Sengun, because we left him alone and he had a pretty bad break. He's going to have to work on his shot. But my thing was, we got to respect shooters, even if they're big men. I just don't like seeing us telling guys, professionals, just shoot. Now, if it's somebody cannot shoot, that's one thing. But a guy like Christian Wood, don't leave him out there. A guy like Jalen Green, don't do that. And I saw that tonight. Those are not the players to do that with. I understand doing that to certain players, but not those guys. So that was something that I wanted to say. But as far as Christian Wood, yeah, man, he's just doing his thing. I think he had 4 blocks too, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. So I say this every time I mention him, but I expect him to be an all-star. If not this year, next year, because he's going to be good enough to be there every year, pretty much as long as he's healthy. He's just one of the best young power forwards in basketball, period. So yeah, that's what I got, man. That's the gist of it. Still didn't see Josh Christopher. Not very happy about that. I want that kid to get some playing time because I don't think he's regular. I don't. He's not regular. You gotta play him, Silas. He's not regular. And KJ, keep giving KJ minutes, man. Get him in the rotation. They got a good problem to have because it's a lot of depth there. But you do not want to neglect what you have there in terms of getting those guys revved up and ready to go. Because I'm telling you, what I saw from the Houston Rockets tonight was a fearlessness. It's just simply fearless. They were getting the best effort from 4 of the best players to ever play the game. Okay, because Carmelo Anthony was very much giving us star power. And they still ended up cutting it to 1 with no conscience. Jumping all over the place, driving at us, shooting clutch shots, no conscience. The Lakers got to get better defensively, and the Rockets just need to continue to let these kids figure themselves out. Be patient. Let them have their little bad year. But do play everybody. Do play everybody. This is the wrong team to shrink your bench. You got about 9 kids that all need to prove themselves. And if they all get a chance to gel at the same time, I literally think this is going to be one of the best young teams ever assembled. They can win a lot. And I just think that it comes down to getting them all to having confidence with one another, getting them all to not necessarily see themselves as role players, but to see themselves as stars within their roles, and get the most out of these youngster kids. Because I'm telling you, like Cleveland, like Charlotte, like so many other young teams, like Minnesota, these are not youngsters that you have to really think too much about in terms of whether or not they're good investments. This is one of the greatest draft eras the game has ever seen, and you have more high impact players than you've ever seen be high impact. So yeah, we just gotta get our minds out of the fact that just because guys are further down the depth chart, that they should not be able to help you, because that's just not the reality of the NBA today. And I see that we're following the trend of shrink your bench and only play certain guys, and that's not where we're at. It's just not where we are. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say, man. Very good game from both teams, ultimately in terms of effort, not execution. But yeah, very encouraged on the offensive end from the Lakers in terms of us getting our ball movement going. Carmelo Anthony and LeBron James have a synergy. That's something I want to mention. I love seeing Carmelo just seems to make every shot that LeBron passes to him. Funny stuff that happened out there. Carmelo was giving some passes off, and I know for a long time people were saying, Carmelo don't pass, Carmelo don't pass. Well, Carmelo made a fantastic pass to Brody in the paint. He missed it. He made a fantastic pass to LeBron and James in the paint, and he missed it. We ain't gonna be calling Carmelo Anthony unselfish on this team. That's what we not gonna do, because those were 2 assists he definitely made in the flow of the offense. He was extremely unselfish tonight, and I think that is so very important to mention, because Carmelo Anthony, that was not what I was expecting. You know, all these years, I didn't think he was gonna be as willing of a passer as he's been, and you know, he and Brody have been trusting of LeBron James. They give him the ball, and he gets it back to him. And I just saw a lot of that good synergy tonight. So even though the game wasn't necessarily pretty, for those who are looking for our team to start finding that synergy amongst themselves, I'm seeing it in some very good ways, some key ways. So yeah, that's something I wanted to mention. Yeah, stuff like that. Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, they're just all starting to understand one another a little better. Kent Bazemore fits well. So you're seeing the synergy come on the offensive end. That translates to effort on the defensive end, but not necessarily effectiveness on the defensive end. So we have got to get that under control. And so that's what I got, man. That's what I want to say, man. Shout out to Avery Bradley for continuing to stabilize things. I know they were talking about how he wasn't scoring. I do not think much of his scoring at all. As long as he's continuing to track people, stay on them like skin. As long as he's doing those things, it's better than scoring in some ways. Because we have 5-6 players that are gonna go for 30 points. He don't need to score as much as he just needs to hit his open shots, hit his free throws, and then just track people, track them. Be as brilliant as he is defensively. Didn't see Rondo tonight. Don't know if he's not healthy or if they just rested him. Have no idea what's going on there, but we did not see any Rondo tonight. So yeah, heavy usage on the big guys. It was all about them. They all scored over 25 points. They all did big things in just about every category, and still came down to one shot against a very, very, very young team. So defense, defense, defense. That's it. My name is BDO44. Thank y'all for watching. I'm out.